All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the December 2025 Link Tech Talk. My name is Colin Orion Chandler, and our co-host is Mi Dai. We are both Link Frameworks product scientists, and I'm at the Drac Institute, University of Washington, and Mi Dai is at the University of Pittsburgh. Link Tech Talks include presentations and demonstrations that showcase work done by the broader Rubin software and archives community with the goal of further enabling LSST science. And unlike traditional talks you might hear at a conference, these highlight the technical aspect of the work being done. We hope these talks provide a useful forum for a range of groups and authors to present and learn about and discuss efforts of interest in the analyses of LSST data. Link Tech Talks are delivered virtually every second Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. Pacific, except when it overlaps with AAS, like next month, so we'll be back in February. Our speaker today is Carrie Holt, a postdoctoral scholar at the Los Cumbres International Observatory. Carrie's going to talk to us about the FOMO system for coordinating telescope follow-up of astronomical events, especially solar system related. Carrie is on the job market, so keep that in mind while you're watching the talk. And for the talk, please ask questions in Zoom or on the hashtag Link Tech Talks channel on the Discovery Alliance Slack. On Zoom, you can type questions into chat or raise your hand. Carrie's asked you hold the questions towards the end of the talk if you could, so we would appreciate that. And as a friendly reminder, these talks are being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel later on. So with that, Carrie, please do take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, let me share my screen if I can get my meeting controls back. There we go. Yay. Awesome. Can everybody see that?
Yep, that looks great. Thanks.
Yep.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks everybody for coming and listening to this. Thanks for inviting me as well. So yeah, like Colin said, I'm Carrie Holt. I'm a LSST Catalyst Fellow at Los Cumbres Observatory. I feel like I've been heavily involved in a lot of Rubin things over the past 2 years since I've been here, including being in a Link incubator and going to some hackathons. So really like working with you all and happy that I get to do this. So today I'm going to talk about a follow-up coordination website that myself and Tim Lister, my local advisor at LCO, are working on for a follow-up coordination website for solar system. And it's called FOMO, which stands for Follow-up Observations of Moving Objects. So how this talk is going to go, I'm going to start with a little bit of motivation, though I think a lot of you can already see why we need follow-up coordination. It's a new era, give an overview, and then kind of step through the different major components and what those will go look like in more detail and the status of those, and then do a kind of overview of the current status and the next steps for minimum product and then future iterations. And then end with a sort of callback for any feedback and also potential collaborators. So we have a big challenge coming up. LSST is going to discover more than 10 times more solar system objects than we currently have known. And large telescope time is very limited when it comes to follow-up, which means that coordinating between the community is critical for maximizing the science return. Also in this new era, we're going to be getting very prompt alerts for solar system objects, so that could also allow for extremely rapid response times. And in general, follow-up facilities are becoming more and more able to respond more and more rapidly with new robotic capabilities. And in general, there's just going to be a lot of moving pieces. You have so many observers in the different science in the science collaboration, so many telescopes, data streams, and having some sort of centralized system to keep track of this would be super helpful. Really needed. So how we coordinate now. So in the past, these sort of large scale coordination efforts, which have really only happened for interstellar objects so far, because obviously that's exciting and we're all observing them, have involved a sort of fillable spreadsheet that's been initiated by a community member. So this is an example of one that like is fancier looking than, the Google Sheets, which is also what we've used in the past. Daryl Sullivan and crew put together for 3i Atlas. which is just, it's really impressive, and it shows a desire to coordinate when these things come together in the community, but which is good for now, especially when there's like such few objects that everybody wants to all observe, but it's not super sustainable in the upcoming Rubin era. And this is because it takes somebody to take initiative, and like who that somebody is not designated or anything. It's just we're together. And as much as you want to share the stretching stuff, it can still end up only going to people who are in the know and know where to look and know who to ask to see what sort of coordination is happening. And yeah, once we start getting to, many objects, and multiple objects, then if we have like a mini spreadsheets at different websites or different things, like it can get complicated pretty quickly. Another thing is that this requires somebody to go back in and manually update. So if they're saying I'm getting these observations, they have to go back in and say, did you actually get them or not? Which also means people need to keep on it to make them up to date. So in this new era, we really need a centralized system to coordinate these follow-up observations. So this, we imagine a single place for an overview of the different proposals and facilities for different TOO observations for really exciting objects that we want to follow up. Having some place where we can have tools to sort of plan and optimize observations across multiple facilities. Being able to have as much automated as possible so we can just focus on working on the data because we're going to have a lot more of it. Having somewhere where we can reference the follow-up status and observing history. So we can go somewhere and see, okay, when and how has this been observed before? What still needs to be done? I've seen it's gotten photometry for the past month, but we haven't gotten spectra yet, or things like that. And in general, just a place where we can have better tracking, which is helpful. Go from alerts, observations, data, and ultimately publications to have a really collaborative, centralized system. This is a more complex graphic, so don't like really read it, but it ultimately is just saying where FOMO fits in to the other systems that we know that exist. So besides our users, FOMO is supposed to interact with the broker system, different broker systems, the Minor Planet Center for New Discoveries, the RAFs, which is going to be the new like new ATEL-E type thing for solar system objects, and then manual telescopes, robotic telescopes, and also different telescope status programs that are in the works as well. So that's where it kind of interacts with a lot of different moving pieces. So our base for FOMO is the TOM Toolkit. So this is a software package template that is built by LCO to facilitate these observing projects and collaborations for astronomers without needing high-level database or software expertise like myself, because I do not have a lot of that high-level expertise. So TOM Toolkit's been used for several different groups, including different supernova group, microlensing, follow-up of ZTF targets, and more. I don't remember the last count of how many people have used the TOM Toolkit, but it's up there. And what the TOM Toolkit already has in its system, so they already have the ability to ingest target information from brokers and from JPL and now the Minor Planet Center API as well. Already within the system, you can do observation scheduling with LCO, Gemini, and SOAR, and also get the sort of observation status updates and optionally ingest the data back into the system. Some things that they are working on, the TOM Toolkit team, is Rubin Science Platform support, ESO, the European Southern Observatory, their facilities support in that. Facility status, which I'll go into in a little bit because it's like a separate thing that will be integrated into that. And then also enhanced user registration. And in general, this is one of the helpful things of having the team, a couple offices down, because they're very collaborative, and they also have goals of having the TOM Toolkit work better for solar system objects. So we can work together to sort of achieve if there's certain tasks that they're like, oh, that's something that we say that we would like in our system, and they're like, oh, well, we were thinking about doing that anyway. Um, yeah, working together to get things done. And then ultimately, like if we're working on something that could be useful for people in the future, then we can just put that into the toolkit itself and not limit it to just FOMO, which is nice. All right, so I'm going to walk through the sort of major components, and how I've done this is sort of just briefly describe the major components, and then I'm going to kind of do like a narrative of how we envision walking through this system, um, and then go into a little bit more detail. So starting off, the ingestion of targets is a huge component. And when I say ingestion of targets, I mean ingesting new objects of interest into the system. And this is based on community filters, which is true, but also um, not necessarily only community filter on brokers, right? So we are also thinking of new discoveries that we would get from the MPC, but have those automatically be ingested into the system. So as a narrative, um, Rubin has discovered a comet outburst on 456P, and FOMO is made aware of the outburst via brokers, so it ingests it into the database along with its latest orbital elements. So our plan is for objects to be ingested from different brokers. Right now we have a lot of the most collaboration from the Think broker on this. Also, again, to be ingested from the Minor Planet Center via daily queries for new object discoveries. So we're not necessarily going to brokers for the discovery of new objects. It's more objects that are known that are doing something interesting. Yeah. So ingested from Minor Planet Center. Also JPL horizons. A lot of that might just be data that they have as far as orbital elements and things like that. The From RAF, so the announcement program that I was saying, there's an announcement program for solar systems. So having automatic ingestions, if somebody says, hey, this object's doing a weird thing, if somebody catches it first, because maybe it's not coming from Rubin, it's coming from something else, we want to be able to automatically add that to FOMO as well. And then finally, manual input if, we want to have that option, obviously. So data to be collected. We're hoping to have to get around like data right stuff to just have data from the brokers themselves, especially these brokers like Fink have the photometry for these different objects already. And then we'll be collecting the orbital elements and different physical parameters from the Minor Planet Center as well. So right now we can ingest data via Minor Planet Center Explorer, their API, and also JPL Horizons. We still, and this is like community, even like beyond FOMO, we're still working on these broker community filters that need to be developed for Rubin and deployed. The Solar System Science Collaboration put in a community filter for the community science team to do basically active objects that like increase in brightness. I think or just objects that increase in brightness. And it was accepted to work with the community science team and the Antares broker. So that will be exciting. So we'll be able to include that. And in general, development is still being done on integrating the announcement program and the broker systems into FOMO. So the next major component would be visualization. So this is to visualize. We want to have a list and see, visualize the database of ingested objects in a sort of filterable, sortable way, and then see a summary of all the information related to a specific object. So this including like Rubin data and orbital elements, past observations. So for the narrative, so on coming back to our 456P that's outbursting. So on the FOMO webpage, Carrie's able to view all the ingested objects and filter sort so that she can easily find the most recently added outbursting comets. And she clicks on 456P. It's taken to an object page where she sees all the related information in one place, including the orbital elements, physical parameters, and links to related pages. Sheets also can also see all of the different pending and completed observations from other users. So to me, this is one of the things that's most useful is just having a place where you can sort of see what new exciting thing has occurred in one place, and you don't necessarily need to have your own filter for like everything when we all have a lot of common interests. Is it's using Django views because that's what the TOM Toolkit's based on, paginated, sortable, filterable, and then you can link to the different object pages. So this is supported in TOM Toolkit, but to to satisfy the different user needs, we'll do some more design iteration to make it more specifically what we want it to look like. And then when you get into the object view containing, and these are wireframes, obviously, in case that wasn't clear, contain details about the specific object, again, the orbital elements, physical parameters. Hopefully we can get some sort of thumbnail or photometry from Rubin in the future. And in general, have different links to external pages. Again, this sort of view is supported in TOM Toolkit, but again, needs the sort of design, iteration, and feedback to satisfy user needs. Here's an example from like the live demo of FOMO. This is like from an older demo screenshot too, but you can see just even as the basics, you have all the information here. We can add different observations. You can see that here as the sort of basic, and then there's different. We can change this to what we want to have as our main things that we want in the object view. So the next major component is planning. So this is being able to view the facility statuses for different facilities that have TOOs, being to view upcoming classical nights of different FOMO users, and also have tools for observing prep. So this includes ephemeris generation, exposure time calculator, etc. So coming back to 456p, so I want to see, Carrie checks FOMO to see if Gemini South is open and what instrument is on it. Also check the calendar, and I see that Tim has an observing night on SOAR, but it's not until next week, so I kind of want to observe it earlier. So I'm thinking of triggering a Gemini TOO, and I'm able to plan everything I need using FOMO. So the main things here so far, the ideas are is sort of a facility status page. So what especially robotic facilities, but even non-robotic, what's the status of different facilities that have follow-up capabilities, what instruments are on, and having an understanding of different classical nights on some sort of calendar will also be helpful, especially when it comes to in-kind the in-kind contributions of follow-up time, because a lot of that they designate certain nights to do that, to do that. So there's this project that is being led by Tim. It's called Heroic, and I meant to have my Heroic screenshot, but I guess it is on a different page. Okay, but it's being built to coordinate TOO observations between groups. So they have a display status of all the major US national facilities and seeing, is it on sky, not on sky, is the dome open, is it closed, what instrument is on, is it available or is it not available? Like, is somebody using it, or is it open for queued observing? And you can also filter facilities by user access as well. And the plan is for this to be connected to the TOM Toolkit for easy scheduling. So this is a little bit outside of what Tim and I are working on, but it is connected, and we're not going to reinvent the wheel when somebody is doing a great job of building the same sort of needs that we're interested in. But these are like a lot of the major larger facilities, but we are still looking into the best way to have sort of some status gathering for other facilities, like manual facilities. And I will talk about that a little bit later. But this is an example of an LCO sort of like status page. So you see the different zones when there's different plant maintenance or different issues on the different telescopes. And that's the idea. besides just knowing what facilities are available, we also want to make it easier for our users to have the tools needed, especially for um, manual telescopes, to have everything that they need from our system to conduct observations as quickly as possible. So that includes having an ephemeris generator module to generate, target visibility with different sky and facility constraints, an exposure time calculator, which can help us estimate our signal to noise based on the information that we have already been able to ingest. And then also different follow-up observation templates and overhead estimation. So having something very quickly say, okay, if something is this bright and I want to observe it with this telescope, this is probably the template that I want for an outburst, or the template that I want for just regular monitoring or anything like that. And templates are supported in the TOM Toolkit. It's great. You can just set up, this is my proposal, the exposures, number, exposure times, filters, and sort of our different limits that you might want to have. And I think I go back to this as well. So for observation status too, well, did I skip ahead? I'm going to come back to that page because it got out of order because that's going to go into more the observation ranger component. So this is sending off observations requests. So saying, okay, yes, I want to observe this, receiving updates, and then following links to data products. So for 456p, so Carrie's excited. She triggers her TOO via FOMO and is able to continually check the status there. And then when 456p is observed, she clicks the link, taking her to the data product. So for robotic facilities, we can submit observations through the FOMO system and be able to continually view the status here. So this is already a feature of the TOM Toolkit. This is a screenshot from our demo right now. So you can see here, status pending, status completed of the different things. And here, it's a little overlapping here, but you can download the data from here. You can also you can upload products to that data as well, if it's from a different facility. And then you can turn successful observations into the templates, like I said. So there's a little button that you just say, I'm like, this was a great successful request, create a template. And again, this is already a feature in the TOM Toolkit, which is lovely. So for manual facilities, right now, the vision, what we would like is to view assigned targets for a manual observatory. So ideally, especially these sort of in-kind facilities, and I put Mount John here because Mount John is in New Zealand, has a in-kind contribution of telescope time led by a solar system observer. So we imagine that we'll be working with them a lot on this. But we would love it if when they're setting up to do their in-kind nights, they're able to easily have a sort of target list for them and ensure easy access to different information. Like I said, the ephemeris, exposure times, filters, maybe even a suggested schedule. And we want to create a way where you can easily do status updates in return from a manual facility, whether it's, I don't know, maybe just sending in like one text file at the end of the night with an update or something. This is something that we need probably a lot of community input on what people need, because obviously Tim and I are at Los Cumbres Observatory, which is a robotic facility, and that's our what we're mostly using these days. So yes, and I said Mount John, but for in general different. It's not limited to that, to other manual facilities as well. Great. So current status of where we're at. I'm even faster than I thought. Okay. A current status of where we're at. So for adding targets, we're able to do that manually. Retrieving target data, we're able to do that from JPL and the Minor Planet Center. We can send robotic observing requests to LCO Gemini and SOAR. And we have a new ephemeris generation module that works, which is great, that Tim spent a lot of time on. It works well. and also getting status updates of requests like I showed earlier. So we have successfully been able to manually ingest a target, send an observation request, and then receive status updates and final data products. So from start to finish, we have a functioning system in that way. What we view as what we view as the things that we definitely need for a sort of minimum product to share with the community. Um, and this is also stuff that people, we can chat about if we want. So for me, I really on automatically ingesting targets from a sort of daily MPC query from broker alerts. I think that's necessary because that's one of the major points, is to have a place where we can see objects of interest. Want to be able to retrieve target data from brokers as well. Also be able to send robotic observations to ESO facilities. That is in the works, so it should be pretty soon. And also those are the other very large major facilities, so it would be important to include them. Also to have a more concrete management of like users and proposals with different permissions, which we can get into because we have a general easy user sign up, but working with the TOM Toolkit folks on how to properly have management so people only have access to their stuff and set there's lots of different permission toggles, but the best way to set that up with this system is something that we need to do before releasing it out. And then finally, front end design and a new logo, because right now it's still looking like a template, so I want to make it prettier. So that's the main things for the future, but also very, very important near future additions. Again, would be ESO's would not be like a hard requirement, but I think it will be done. But that would be one that definitely added. Many more planning tools, and in general, integration with manual facilities is going to be really, really important in the future. So we get going. So we're happy to take feedback. We're still on some of these components. So if there's anything that we might have missed, are there any critical functionalities that we haven't considered? We are happy to hear from you. You can email me. You can talk to me now. Yeah, we appreciate any insight. And I've talked to the collaboration a little bit, and I know a lot of you guys are here, and yeah, especially as users, that'd be great. And we're also accepting collaborators. So we're breaking down some of these tasks that can be tackled by individuals or small groups. So if you're interested in helping out, please reach out. Yeah. So yeah, stay tuned. Just as a wrap up sentence, so FOMO is going to be a tool for the solar system community to optimize the science return of LSST through coordinating follow-up observations. So our immediate next steps are to continue to iterate with TOM Toolkit on common goals, especially for our user and proposal registration. Our initial focus areas, object ingestion, our current focus areas. We've already made other progress on different things, but object ingestion from Minor Planet Center and from brokers, and then front end design. So we'll totally take some help, especially when it comes to broker integration, observation planning things. If somebody's super awesome at making logos, happy to chat about that too. So yeah, thank you all so much for having me. And I know I'm pretty early, but I'll have time for any questions, discussions. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Carrie. We definitely have time for some questions. Just as a reminder, feel free to ask questions by raising your hand on Zoom, asking Zoom chat, or posting in the hashtag Link Tech Talks channel on the Discovery Alliance. I see that Jeremy has his hand raised. Go for it.
Yeah. Thanks. That was really interesting. What's the plan for the data products that you pull out of this? Are you hosting them centrally in a single location, or are they going to be like links to each of the observatories that collected them?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that I should have put on here for this crew, because that's another thing that we have to think about. Right now, it's just to have links to the different, to the site pages. But that's something that as we go, because another thing I did not say, but another thing that we have to actually get going on is where to host this and how much space do we actually need for what we want to do. So right now, I think it's for the, especially for returning the data products, is the coordination is the main goal, not necessarily like sharing data, because that's not necessarily what everybody wants to do, though I'm happy for it, open data for everybody. But yeah, so right now it's just links to the other things. In the future, if that's something people are interested in and we can find some space somewhere, it's been thought about, that idea. Good question.
Thanks.
Awesome. Go ahead, Olivia.
Thank you for the talk. It was really exciting. I going back to when you described the data ingestion, you talked about briefly Rubin data rights and Think, which I'm not familiar with. But what are some of the main challenges in like collecting and sharing the kind of data you ideally want to use, and how do you navigate that?
Yeah, so for us, we want this, especially because we anticipate a lot of these coming from Rubin, obviously, but they don't necessarily have to. There can be interesting discoveries from other places. So we don't want to limit the system to only data users, obviously. We want anybody to be able to use it. As far as data incoming, our idea right now, and this is not necessarily a requirement for our like minimal product, is that data coming from the brokers, so the alerts, and Think is a broker, is open to the public immediately. So it is not proprietary. So if we ingest data that way, and that's the thing that would take up space. So that's why it's a little bit like we might, depending on how much space we have. Yeah, so that's how we kind of work around it, if that makes sense. So our plan is to avoid having to deal with that, having to deal with figuring out which users have data rights or not.
Yeah, that's so much fun to work with. Henry, I see your hand is raised.
Thanks for the update, Carrie. It's great to see all the progress. I was wondering if there had been any thought about push notification type things, like your flowchart had a lot of like, Carrie goes to the website and checks this, and like, Carrie checks back, and but if there could be a way to like, register your favorite, like if anyone if any comet outburst
Yeah.
posted, it like, I'm thinking especially for people who have like TOO programs who like may not have like a specified night but could trigger whenever. So yeah, if you could talk about that.
Yeah. Colin, I know, wants to text to his phone. Yeah, we have not actually thought about that. I know that that's a capability for some of the brokers for these alerts, but as far as I know, it hasn't been built yet for new discoveries from the Minot Planet Center, and I think that's something we could really use. So yeah, I would really like to look into that. I think now that we've sort of realized like where we're actually going to get our exciting objects from, and I think, yeah, so I would really like to look into it, especially for new discovered objects like the Minor Planet Center. I think there might be a way to integrate alerts from the brokers, but having it go through our system, I'm not really sure. But yeah, I think that should be something we should look into. And I'm making a note right now. Thanks for the idea, Henry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you stole my question, but that's a great one. And I mean, I realize that Raft and some of the other systems are going to have notifications too. But like, if somebody's done observing and then you want to know that it's happened or just be abreast of it. I guess I will ask a question with the host prerogative. We did some TO testing and integration for 3i with Rubin Observatory. Have you had any plans or is there anything on happening for integrating with Rubin's system that way?
As That's a great question. And Tim might have more thoughts on this because he's more plugged into the Rubin TOO stuff. Um, as
I know
far
it's
as
rare.
like, yeah, but as far as like triggering using FOMO, I don't think that's something that we're going to do. But I do think having part of one of the facility statuses that we want to track is Rubin. Like we want to know when Rubin is on, or if is Rubin doing its normal thing, is Rubin doing a different TOO. So having future pointings is something that we've also been working on and thinking about to know, okay, this is my exciting object. When is it going to be observed next by Rubin is also something we want to keep track of in the system. So that's not necessarily TOO related, but yeah, Rubin is an important follow-up facility of itself,
Yeah, awesome. All right, cool. Okay, Jeremy, see your hands up.
Yeah. On the astronomy side, what do you think are going to be the high priority follow-ups? You mentioned interstellar objects, which I'm sure will be on the top of the list until we're up to like thousands of them that we've seen. The comets, active objects. What else?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, it's a great time because Henry will tell you we've been thinking a lot about the active objects working group and the solar system collaboration in general on what are the exciting things to follow up. There's a couple of initiatives with Gemini and with HST and JWST to kind of think about these ahead of time for the high priority objects. So we've been thinking about them. So yeah, interstellar objects is a big one. Things with high change in activity, whether it's an outburst or fragmenting object, new active asteroids, so something becoming active, which can happen a bunch of ways, including like, collisions and stuff. Near Earth, a big one's near Earth asteroids, especially potential impactors. These are things obviously we want to get very quickly on. There's definitely more. I really like comets and active objects, so those are the ones that I'm excited about. But yeah, if Henry has thoughts, he can share some more. But yeah, that's a good question.
As you asked that question, I pulled up the list so I could answer it. And Carrie actually did a very good job of hitting almost all of them. I would say maybe I didn't hear you say something about disintegrating comet, like splitting comets. That would be probably very interesting. And then yeah, like impactors, like either imminent impactors or virtual impactors, like kind of future impactors. But yeah. And just weird stuff like technosignatures is something that we have a solar system science collaboration team working on that. So yeah. I had another I want to tag on to Colin's comment. You mentioned taking into account Rubin as a follow-up facility. What about all the other surveys like Atlas and ZTF and Pan-STARRS? Is that on the table?
Yeah, that is a distant future on the table.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even put it in the near future, but it is something that we have thought about. So thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, the biggest thing for us there is data storage because it's just, yeah, we're gonna have to think about that. I would love to at a minimum have a link to the different pages just as like something. Yeah, but I would love to have it would just be cool to have a centralized place for it. But it requires a lot more storage and money. So we'll see.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yeah. And I will say, adding up to like the follow-up exciting things. So we have a lot of those are like some high priority things, but we anticipate FOMO also being used for lesser priority follow-up that still needs to be coordinated, like really interesting trans-Neptunian objects, very distant comets, things like that. So these are things that we want to monitor or have an idea of, but it's not necessarily we want to like need to jump on with TOO. So we want this to it doesn't have to be target of opportunity observations to be in this system. It can just be regular observing as well.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to cheat and ask another question here. And that's just because I think folks who watch this later might also have this question, which is we talked a lot about sort of professional institutions and facilities, but of course in solar system and many other fields, we are super reliant on amateurs participating in follow-up. Is the goal that they will also be able to participate and use FOMO, or is this really restricted to sort of the professional facilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. It would be a distant goal. And honestly, and we've talked to some different groups as well. And honestly, one of the bigger things is this is going to be built mainly for Rubin follow-up, and a lot of these amateur telescopes are not going to be big enough to do follow-up on things that faint. But we're working with the TOM Toolkit, and they already have some of these things with some other people who use the TOM Toolkit that have amateur involvement. So we're working on a way to easily add new facilities without it being like a whole thing, and you have to put in like a million different parameters to add stuff. Also, I didn't mention this because this is also important. Also, one of the things that we would like to do is not having to have it be like super official in the system in order to coordinate. So, like I said earlier at the very beginning, like right now we're coordinating with spreadsheets, and there's still use for having something like that. So even if somebody doesn't need to add their facility through the process of all that stuff, but they just want to put manually, hey, we observed this object at this date and we got this. So we want to have that be a very low barrier to manually add these things. And I think that's something that should be easier for amateurs that want to get involved, but we also don't want to get like a lot of the amateur observations go into like COBs, and so there's a chance that we could maybe pull stuff from that. So the answer is it is something we're thinking about, but in the more distant future, just because, especially for Rubin, a lot of these bigger facilities are going to be more coveted. But I think amateur data is super useful across the board, and there will be, especially coming up. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Are there any other questions? Wonderful. We will actually end on time, which is wonderful. So I'd just like to thank Carrie again for an awesome talk. Thanks to everyone for attending today and the Tech Talk series. Our next Tech Talk is going to be on February 12th, so stay tuned for an announcement about that. And you can see those by joining the LSST Discovery Alliance #link Tech Talk Slack channel, the link at lists.lsst.org mailing list. There's also, of course, the website, and the community forum has a calendar. We are also holding office hours every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific, except when it conflicts with one of these tech talks. And if you have an idea for a tech talk, we would love to hear from you. So feel free to reach out to us via the LCT Discovery Alliance Slack or email, and all of those are listed on the link Tech Talk webpage. And so we will be posting this video on YouTube and hopefully sometime in the next few days. And we thank everyone again. Have a great rest of your day or night.
Thanks, guys.